Welcome to the Playing Books podcast, where we plunge into fascinating material, extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, and really help you become truly well-informed. We believe that truly understanding the world, in all its complexity, is one of the most empowering things you can actually do. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into excerpts from a truly remarkable book, Factfulness: 10 Reasons We're Wrong About the World and Why Things Are Better Than You Think. It's by Hans Rosling, along with Ola Rosling and Anna Rosling Runland. And look, for those of you who might be grappling with information overload or maybe just seeking a clearer lens to view global events, well, this book is an absolute game changer.
It really is. Hans Rosling himself described this as his very last battle in my lifelong mission to fight devastating global ignorance. And you can feel that passion. That was also a real collaborative effort, the result of constant discussion, argument, and collaboration between three people with different talents, knowledge, and perspectives.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to unpack why so many of us, and I mean even highly educated, well-intentioned people, consistently misunderstand the true state of the world, and maybe more importantly, how we can actually achieve a more fact-based worldview.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond those gut feelings and assumptions to see reality clearly. And really, it's about equipping ourselves to make better decisions, whether that's in our personal lives, our businesses, or, just as citizens of the world.
And prepare to be genuinely surprised, because the book kicks off with a bang. It really does. It opens with a series of simple, multiple-choice questions about global trends, things like extreme poverty, population growth, vaccination rates. Basic stuff, you think.
You would think. But the shocking reality is that most people, and we're talking Nobel laureates, medical researchers, top financial managers, they score worse than random chance. Often, even worse than chimpanzees, just picking randomly.
Worse than chimpanzees, that's right. A chimp would literally do better on these questions than most highly educated humans. It's kind of mind-blowing.
It's a really striking and, frankly, humbling point the authors make. For instance, take the question about the decline of global extreme poverty over the last 20 years. On average, only 7%, and get this, just 5% in the U.S. picked the correct answer, that it has halved.
Halved. Think about that for a second. The vast majority believed it had either stayed the same or, even worse, actually doubled. That's the complete opposite of what's happened. It's one of the greatest achievements in human history, and most people don't know it.
And it's not just poverty. Look at vaccination rates among one-year-old children globally. Only a minority gets the correct answer, which is what? A stunning 88% are vaccinated?
88%. Yet, when Hans tested a group of global financial managers, people managing huge sums of money based on their understanding of the world, 85% of them thought only a minority of kids were vaccinated.
Yeah, and that's not just, getting a quiz question wrong. It shows a deeply flawed perception of huge, rapidly growing markets. It means businesses might be missing massive investment opportunities because they're stuck on this idea of impoverished, underdeveloped regions everywhere.
So what's going on? Is everyone just stupid?
Well, no, and that's what's really fascinating here. It isn't a sign of stupidity or even intentional misinformation. It's a reflection of what the authors call an outdated worldview. And these powerful, dramatic instincts our brains are prone to.
Dramatic instincts.
Yeah, our minds, they evolved to spot immediate threats, simplify complex stuff. That worked great on the savannah. But today, with all this data and interconnectedness, those same instincts often lead us astray. We focus on the sensational, the negative, what confirms our old ideas, even if they're totally wrong now.
Okay, so if our brains are kind of working against us here, how do we fix it? How do we upgrade our understanding?
That's the core of the book. We need to learn to control these instincts.
Right. So we're going to unpack this together, figure out how to get that fact-based worldview. Let's start with the foundation the book lays out, getting rid of this idea of a divided world.
Absolutely. That's fundamental. The problem with our old categories, developing world, developed world, or just them and us, it creates this false, simplistic picture. It's outdated. These labels just don't match the reality of the world today. They create this artificial gap, this chasm, and it blinds us to so much progress.
It's like we're still using a world map from, 1960 or something.
Yeah.
The book uses this really compelling chart and maps countries by babies per woman versus child survival rates. And historically, the developing world boxed lots of kids, lots of deaths, so that box was huge. But today,
that box is almost empty. That's the profound point. The world has completely transformed in the last few decades, but our mental map hasn't kept up. The stark reality is a staggering 85% of humanity already lives in countries where families are small and child deaths are rare, what we used to call the developed world.
85%. So countries like China, India.
Absolutely. They're firmly in this category now. They've moved dramatically out of that old developing box. Only about 13 countries, representing just 6% of the world population, are still in that old box. So this idea of a world split in two, with most people stuck in misery, it's just an illusion, a total misconception that stops us seeing things clearly.
Okay, so if those old labels developing are basically useless now, what do we use instead?
Well, the book proposes a new fact-based framework. 4 income levels. It's simple, but way more accurate and useful for understanding the world.
4 income levels.
Exactly. Instead of just 2 misleading boxes, you have 4 distinct levels. Each one represents roughly 1 billion people, based on their daily income in dollars. And this framework becomes this crucial lens for looking at almost everything: public health, economic growth, terrorism, education, everything. It really shows that progress isn't about some countries being developed and others stuck. It's about people and whole nations moving up through these levels, like climbing a ladder step by step.
Okay, let's break those levels down, because getting this seems really foundational to the whole factfulness idea. Level 1, that's extreme poverty, right? Living on less than $1 a day.
Technically less than $2 a day in the book's updated figures, but yes, extreme poverty. Survival is a daily struggle. Basic food, water. Life often means walking hours for dirty water, cooking on an open fire inside, sleeping on the ground. And think about this. Historically, pretty much all of humanity lived like this until around 1966. Today, about 1 billion people are still there. Their whole day is just about surviving.
Wow. Okay, then level 2?
Level 2 is living on about $4 a day. Here, basic needs are maybe met, but life's still incredibly fragile. You might afford simple shoes, maybe a bike. Kids can go to school, maybe a gas stove instead of an open fire. Still washing clothes by hand, though. The dream here. Often owning a motorbike. That's a huge leap. About 3 billion people live like this today.
3 billion, so that's a huge chunk of humanity right there. And level 3.
Level 3 is around $16 a day. Now you're starting to see some savings, maybe in a bank, a buffer. You can afford things like a motorbike, maybe reading glasses, which is life-changing for many. Families are saving for high school for their kids. You might even own a washing machine. Think about the hours that frees up. Maybe you can take a short family vacation, like a trip to a nearby beach.
Right.
Roughly 2 billion people are at level 3.
Okay, levels 1, 2, and 3 cover about 6 billion people. So level 4, that's us.
That's most likely where most people listening to this are. Level 4 is more than $64 a day. You can eat out, buy a car, you've got hot and cold running water indoors, probably more than 12 years of education, you've likely been on a plane. The unique challenge for people on level 4, really getting your head around the vast differences between levels 1, 2, and 3. It's almost incomprehensible because your own experience is so different. It's hard to grasp the daily reality, the aspirations of the other 6 billion people.
It's so clear when you lay it out like that. Everyone started at level 1. Now the majority are on levels 2 and 3. That is staggering progress. This framework really helps see that. But okay, you mentioned our brains fight against seeing this clearly, these dramatic instincts. Let's get into those.
Right. The authors identify 10 of these instincts. And unless we're aware of them, they consistently distort how we see the world. We need to learn to control them. Let's start with the first and maybe the most fundamental, the gap instinct.
The gap instinct. Okay, so this is our tendency to divide everything into 2 groups, like us versus them.
Exactly. 2 distinct, often conflicting groups with this big imagined gap in between. Rich versus poor, good versus evil. It's a mental shortcut, a way to categorize quickly.
And how does that distort things?
Well, profoundly. Our brains love binary, thinking it was useful for survival, friend or foe, quickly. But today, journalists, politicians, activists, they often frame stories like that. Good versus evil, extreme poverty versus billionaires. It creates this overdramatic picture. It emphasizes differences and completely hides the messy, nuanced middle ground where most people actually live, like that illusion of a divided world. We just saw 75% of humanity is in those middle income levels, right in the supposed gap.
It really is everywhere once you start looking. You mentioned average SAT scores or average interims between countries like Mexico and the US. Comparing just the averages shows a gap, sure. Men score higher on math SATs on average. US income is higher than Mexican income on average. But just looking at the average hides the huge overlap. Not all men are better than all women at math, obviously. Not all Americans are richer than all Mexicans. Lots of people overlap.
Precisely. The extremes and averages make headlines, But the reality for most people is in that overlapping middle. And this applies even in countries known for inequality, like Brazil, you hear the stat. Richest 10% earn 41% of the income, which is shocking and highlights real inequality. But it doesn't mean everyone else is destitute. The majority of people in Brazil are actually on level 3 in the middle, having escaped extreme poverty. There isn't some massive chasm separating most people into two groups. It's more like a continuous slope.
And that view from up here idea is powerful too. If you're on level 4, like most of us listening probably are, levels 1, 2, and 3 can all just blur together and look poor. You lose the meaning, the huge differences between needing shoes and dreaming of a motorbike.
Exactly. Your own experience is level 4, and the media often filters what you see of other levels, showing you the extremes, the disasters, the non-representative stuff. So you perceive this big gap that isn't really there for the majority.
So how do we fight this gap instinct?
The authors give us clear tools. First, beware comparisons of averages. Always ask about the spread, the distribution, the overlap. Don't let averages fool you. Second, beware comparisons of extremes. The richest and poorest don't represent the majority. Look for the bulk in the middle. And third, as you said, beware the view from up here. Actively challenge your level 4 perspective. Try to imagine how things look from levels 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, so key takeaway for the gap instinct. Look for the middle, the overlaps, not just the extremes. Challenge that us versus them picture. Got it. What's next?
Next up is the straight line instinct. This is our automatic assumption that trends will just keep going in a straight line forever.
Ah, right. Like if something's increasing, we assume it'll keep increasing at the same rate.
Exactly. It works well if a stone is flying at your head, you predict its path. But for complex global trends, it's often really unreliable. Think about the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. First, people underestimated it. Then, cases started doubling. That's exponential growth, not a straight line. Fear shot up. People instinctively imagined this ever-steepening straight line of cases, which led to panic and sometimes counterproductive reactions.
Yeah, and the global population example is perfect too. So much anxiety comes from picturing that line just going straight up forever. But the UN data shows the number of children, kids aged 0 to 15, has basically flatlined at 2 billion. It's projected to stay there until 2100.
Right. The total population grows to 11 billion, mainly because those 2 billion children grow up and become adults, and people are living longer. It's this fill-up effect, not endlessly more babies being born. It's like Hans Rosling's grandchild example. If you projected a baby's first 6 months of rapid growth as a straight line, it would be terrifying. They'd be giants. But of course, they don't keep growing like that. The line curves off.
That's such a crucial point for understanding demographics, sustainability, all sorts of things. But not all lines are curves, right? Some things do follow straight lines.
Some do, relatively speaking. Income levels tend to correlate pretty linearly with things like health outcomes, education levels, age of marriage for women, how much people spend on recreation. Generally, more income means better health, more schooling, later marriage, more leisure spending. Those are often roughly straight lines.
Okay. But then you also have humps. That's another shape.
Yeah, humps are important too. So the book uses a simple example. A tomato plant needs water, but too little kills it, and too much also kills it. Survival peaks in the middle, that's a hump shape. CO2 emissions per person can show a hump shape too. Level 1 countries emit very little per person, obviously. Level 4 countries might have lower emissions per person too, due to efficiency, services, maybe policy, but it's often in those middle levels, especially level 3, where emissions per person rise significantly as people get access to motorbikes, fridges, more energy-intensive lifestyles for the first time. That creates a hump.
So lines can be straight, they can be S-curves, they can be slides, humps, doubling lines, lots of shapes.
Exactly. So to control this instinct, don't assume straight lines. Always ask, what shape does this trend really follow? Remembering that curves come in different shapes helps us avoid bad predictions and wrong solutions based on faulty straight line thinking.
Right. Key takeaway. Question linear projections. Look for the actual curve. What trends in your own life might you be projecting wrongly? Good question to ask. Okay, next instinct.
Next, we dive into the fear instinct. This is our hardwired tendency to pay intense attention to perceived risks, especially violence, being trapped, contamination. It's primal stuff.
And the media loves this one, right?
Oh, absolutely. News producers leverage our fear instinct constantly. It leads to this overdramatic worldview where we consistently overestimate unlikely dangers because frightening things grab our attention. Our brains are wired for fight or flight, and anything triggering that alarm gets immediate focus. Hans Rosling tells this powerful story about himself as a young doctor back in '75. A military pilot crashes, gets brought in twitching. Hans, terrified of World War III, immediately thinks. Russian pilot, epileptic seizure, war wound, blood.
Wow. And the reality.
The reality, Swedish pilot suffering from hypothermia, which caused the twitching, and the blood was just harmless red color from his life jacket's emergency marker. His big takeaway was, when we are afraid, we do not see clearly. Fear is like a thick fog.
That's a great illustration. Our evolutionary fears, snakes, spiders, heights, kept our ancestors alive, but they're a terrible guide today. We fear what's frightening, not necessarily what's dangerous, like natural disasters. Deaths per million from disasters have plummeted in the last 25 years.
Plummeted because of better preparedness, warning systems, global collaboration like the UN's relief web. Incredible progress. Yet the media presents every hurricane, every earthquake as the worst ever, ignoring that amazing positive trend. Remember the Nepal earthquake. Tragic, 9,000 deaths in 10 days. Huge media coverage. But in that exact same 10-day period, another 9,000 children died silently from preventable diarrhea. No cameras, no helicopters. Why? Because diarrhea isn't dramatic. It's killed by plastic pipes, soap, clean water, not exciting footage.
The frightening versus the dangerous, that's key. And nuclear power. People are terrified.
Terrified. But look at Fukushima. Tragic event, yes. But direct deaths from radiation, zero. About 61 elderly people died during a hasty evacuation, which is awful. But compare that risk to, say, coal pollution deaths. Yet public fear, this chemophobia, persists. It even affects things like vaccine uptake. Educated parents sometimes avoid vaccines due to a vague fear of chemicals, forgetting everything is chemicals. Water, air, medicine, it's a generalization fueled by fear.
And terrorism. Obviously frightening and tragic when it happens.
Absolutely tragic. Fatalities did rise in the 2000s, reaching about 159,000 deaths over a decade. Concerning. But globally, terrorism causes only 0.05% of all deaths. Alcohol kills vastly more people, causes countless other problems, but gets far less media fear-mongering. Yet 14 years after 9/11, over half the U.S. public was still worried about terrorism affecting their family the same level as right after the attacks. The fear persists way out of proportion to the statistical risk.
So how do we control this fear instinct? It feels so automatic.
2 crucial steps. First, calculate the risks. Don't rely on gut feelings or scary headlines. Look for the actual data. Quantify the danger. Second, learn to distinguish frightening from dangerous. Ask yourself, is this getting my attention because it taps into primal fear or because it poses a significant probable threat?
Okay, focus energy on the real dangers, not just the scary ones. Calculate, distinguish, got it. What's the next instinct?
Next is the size instinct. This is our tendency to misjudge the importance of a single number, especially a big one, or a single dramatic story without putting it in context. Our brains struggle with scale.
Like seeing a huge number and freaking out without knowing if it's big relative to something else.
Exactly. The media loves lonely numbers because they sound dramatic. Compelling individual stories are powerful too, but they can make us lose sight of the bigger picture, the relative scale. Hans Rosling shares this really tough ethical dilemma from his time as a doctor in Nacala, Mozambique. He had to choose. Use limited hospital resources for intensive, expensive care to try and save one dying child. Or use those same resources for community health programs, clean water, basic sanitation that would prevent common diseases like diarrhea and malaria, and save many more children's lives across the village.
That's a brutal choice.
It is. And he argued, with great difficulty, that it was actually unethical to spend all my time and resources trying to save this one child, when those resources could save so many more through prevention. It forces you to confront the size of the problem versus the size of the intervention. It's about proportions.
Right. And the child mortality numbers illustrate this too. 4.2 million child deaths in 2016 sounds enormous, and each one is a tragedy.
Of course. But compared to 1950, when it was 14.4 million, suddenly 4.2 million looks beautifully small, as Hans puts it. It represents incredible progress in public health, sanitation, medicine. But that lonely number, 4.2 million, presented without the context of the past, hides that amazing story.
And the media coverage thing you mentioned earlier, swine flu versus TB deaths, that's the size instinct too, right? Focusing on the one dramatic case over the massive ongoing problem.
Precisely. During one 2-week period, 31 swine flu deaths got over 250,000 articles. That's over 8,000 articles per death, same 2 weeks. Around 63,000 people died from TB, mostly poor people on levels 1 and 2. TB got 0.1 articles per death. So each swine flu death got 82,000 times more attention than an equally tragic TB death. Our attention zooms in on the novel, the identifiable victim, not the massive silent killer, even when the scale is vastly different.
Wow, 82,000 times. And the 80-20 rule you mentioned, how does that help with the size and stuff?
It's crucial for perspective. Take a list of energy sources: biofuels, coal, gas, geothermal, hydro, nuclear, oil, solar, wind. It looks like a lot of roughly equal contributors. But apply the 80-20 rule. Look closer. You find that just 3 oil, coal, and gas account for 87% of all global energy consumption. Suddenly, you know where the bulk of the issue lies for things like climate change. Focus on the big chunks.
Right, focus on the big pieces first. And
Okay.
comparing absolute numbers versus rates, like CO2 emissions.
Yes, absolutely critical. Blaming, say, China for having higher total CO2 emissions than the U.S. ignores the context. If you look at emissions per capita per person, the U.S. is significantly higher. That per capita rate, it gives a much more meaningful comparison, especially when thinking about consumption patterns or historical responsibility. Always look for rates, not just raw totals when comparing different size groups or countries.
Okay, so to control the size instinct, always compare numbers. Put them in context. Use the 80-20 rule to find the biggest items on a list, and divide use rates per person or per unit for meaningful comparisons.
Exactly. Context is everything for numbers. The next time you see a big, scary statistic, pause. Ask. Compared to what? What's the rate? Where does this fit in the bigger picture? How does proportion change my view?
Makes sense. All right, moving on. What's next?
The generalization instinct. This is our powerful tendency to group things together, assuming members of a group are all alike, or that a simple category perfectly matches a complex reality. It's the engine driving stereotypes.
Ah, stereotypes. We all do it, probably more than we realize.
We do, and it creates misleading pictures, makes us miss diversity within groups, and can lead to real missed opportunities. Think back to those financial managers wrongly assuming most kids weren't vaccinated. They were generalizing. They had this mental category of developing world, poor health, missing huge markets on levels 2 and 3. They stereotyped billions of people.
Right, and that funny story Hans told about eating larvae in Congo.
Oh yeah, classic. Trying to get out of eating larvae by saying, "Oh, my tribe doesn't eat those." Then his European friend happily munches away, blowing his cover. It shows how easily we slip into them versus us based on flimsy generalizations, even when trying to be polite. We misinterpret based on stereotypes.
And students visiting level 2 or 3 countries, they expect mud huts everywhere.
Often, yeah. They're genuinely surprised by organized cities, traffic lights, sewage systems. They might see an unpainted hospital wall and think extreme poverty, when it could be a smart resource allocation decision by local administrators to focus funds on care, not aesthetics, or to deter wealthier patients. Generalizing from a Western aesthetic leads to misinterpretation.
This also challenges Western superiority ideas, right? Like the Indian medical students knowing more.
Exactly. Hans was shocked. His Swedish students knew less about tropical diseases than Indian students who saw them daily. It shattered his generalization that Western medical knowledge was inherently superior across the board. And Anna Rosling Runland's Dollar Street project is brilliant for this. It uses photos to show how families on the same income level across vastly different countries live incredibly similar lives. Similar toothbrushes, similar kitchens, similar aspirations. It visually smashes geographical and cultural generalizations. A level 2 family in Mexico has more in common with a level 2 family in Vietnam than a level 4 family next door.
That's powerful. Income level trumps geography or culture often.
Very often. And even things like chemophobia, fearing all chemicals. That's a generalization from a few bad examples, ignoring that everything is chemicals. Or the Moroccan family with the unpainted concrete house. Looks unfinished to a level 4i, maybe lazy. But for them, it's a smart way to invest gradually in bricks that hold value against inflation. A rational economic decision, not a sign of failure based on our generalized aesthetic.
So controlling this one, how do we do it?
4 key things. 1, look for differences within groups. Don't assume everyone in a category is the same. 2, look for similarities across groups. Find common ground, especially based on income level. 3, beware of exceptional examples. Don't let vivid, dramatic, but rare cases define your view of a whole group. 4, assume others are smart. Look for the rational reasons behind behaviors that seem strange to you. There's usually a logic to it in their context.
Okay. Challenge categories. Look for nuance within and across groups. Assume people have good reasons for what they do. Where do I generalize in my own life? Food for thought. What's the next instinct?
The destiny instinct.
Okay.
This is the idea that innate characteristics determine the destinies of people, countries, cultures, religions. That things are fixed, they never really change.
Yeah.
Especially those people or those countries.
The things will never change feeling. It can feel true sometimes.
It can feel true, but it makes us blind to slow, gradual, but massive progress. It leads to a static, often pessimistic worldview. Think about Africa. Progress there is often dismissed, oh, it's just temporary, good luck, or they'll never really catch up. But the facts, African countries south of the Sahara have cut child mortality faster than Sweden did historically. They've built infrastructure at rates similar to Europe's miracles. Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Kenya seeing rapid economic growth over 5% a year sometimes. But the destiny instinct whispers, but it's Africa. It won't last.
In countries like China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, they were seen as basket cases not long ago.
Exactly. Extreme poverty, conflict, cultural barriers. Progress seemed impossible. Now, they make our clothes, our electronics. India, 35 years ago, was economically where Mozambique is today. Is it impossible Mozambique could be a level 2 country, a reliable trading partner in 30 years? The destiny instinct says yes, but history says change happens.
Even the IMF fell for this, underestimating level 2 country growth.
Consistently, for years after the 2008 crash, they overestimated growth in wealthy level 4 countries and underestimated it in level 2. Stuck in a static view, missing the dynamism. Or look at Iran. Birth rates dropped incredibly fast there, faster than in the US or Sweden historically. But many in the West don't know this, maybe because of a destiny instinct tied to perceptions of its regime. It shows social change can happen fast, even where we don't expect it.
And culture itself isn't fixed, is it? You mentioned Hans's grandfather versus modern Sweden.
Right. Gustav's views on family size, contraception unthinkable in Sweden today. Culture changed dramatically, or Poland and Sweden swapping positions on abortion access over time. The flow of women seeking abortions completely reversed. Cultures are dynamic, they evolve, sometimes rapidly.
And environmental protection. That's slow change we might miss.
Definitely. The percentage of Earth's land surface protected went from almost nothing, 0.03% in 1900, to 15% today. 15%. That's a stunning increase, built from tiny incremental annual changes. It's easy to say it's not enough or things are still getting worse and miss the huge cumulative shift. Slow change is still change.
That anecdote about Hans on the beach in Mozambique is powerful too. Him seeing an empty beach as sad, while his friends saw it as a sign of poverty, dreaming of a crowded beach like in East Germany.
Yeah, his friend Niarewa wanted thousands of kids splashing, a sign of prosperity. Hans realized, despite years working in Africa, he still had this static colonial mindset, struggling to truly imagine they could catch up, that their destiny wasn't fixed poverty. A really honest moment about his own instinct.
So fighting the destiny instinct, what are the tools?
First, keep track of gradual improvements. Small annual changes add up to massive long-term shifts. Don't dismiss slow progress. Second, update your knowledge. Especially social science knowledge, it gets outdated fast. Think of it like a free brain upgrade. Actively seek new data. Third, talk to grandpa or older relatives. Compare values across generations to see cultural shifts firsthand. And fourth, collect examples of cultural change. Actively look for evidence that challenges the idea of static cultures or fixed destinies.
Okay. Look for slow change, update my knowledge constantly, see culture as dynamic, challenge that feeling that things are set in stone. All right, we're getting through these. What's next?
Next is the single perspective instinct. This is our preference for single causes, single solutions. The if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail problem.
The danger of having a favorite idea or tool and applying it to everything.
Precisely. It offers comforting simplicity, but it dangerously oversimplifies reality. It pushes us towards something we must always be against or something we must always be for. Think about free markets versus equality. Both are powerful ideas, but taken is the only solution. Believing all problems are government interference and only tax cuts fix everything. Or believing all problems are inequality and only redistribution works. Applied fanatically, without measuring results or considering context, single perspectives lead to absurd consequences.
Like the Cuba versus U.S. example.
Exactly, Cuba. Economic struggles, lack of freedoms, yes, but also remarkably good health outcomes for its income level, healthiest of the poor, because of a relentless single focus on public health access. The U.S., more freedom, more wealth, but different health challenges. Neither system, neither single perspective gets everything right. Reality is way too complex for one ideology.
And experts can fall into this trap too, focusing only on their area.
Oh, absolutely. Math whizzes might see everything as numbers.
Climate activists might push solar everywhere, even where it's not the best fit. Doctors might focus on treatment over prevention. Their deep knowledge is valuable, but it can also create blind spots. They might overemphasize their own tool or perspective. Hans Rosling himself said he only loved data when it helped him understand the reality behind the numbers, i.e. people's lives. His best insights often came from observing reality, talking to people, not just crunching numbers alone.
So how do we control this single perspective instinct?
2 key things. 1, Remember the hammers and nails idea. Test your ideas. Seek out different perspectives, tools from other fields. Don't rely on just one approach. Be curious about other viewpoints. And two, numbers. But not only numbers. We need numbers to measure reality. But we also need the stories, the context, the qualitative understanding behind them. Use data to understand lives, not just as abstract figures.
Okay, embrace complexity, seek multiple perspectives, combine data with real-world understanding. Don't be a hammer looking for nails. 2 more instincts left. Just 2. Next is the blame instinct. This is our deep-seated need to find a clear, simple reason why something bad happened, usually by finding a villain to point fingers at, or a hero when things go right.
The scapegoat instinct feels very human.
It is. But the huge problem is that blaming someone steals the focus from other possible explanations. Crucially, it stops us from understanding the systemic causes, like blaming developing countries for current CO2 emissions, while ignoring the decades of historical emissions from wealthy countries. It's a simple blame game that hides the complex systemic reality. Hans emphasized, when something goes wrong, it's almost always about multiple interacting causes, a system, not just one bad guy.
Right. Finding a villain feels satisfying, maybe, but it stops us thinking deeper.
Exactly. Once we identify the bad guy, our critical thinking often shuts down. We don't look at the complex systems, the policies, the history, the multiple factors involved. We just point fingers. It's unproductive. So to control this, 2 countermeasures. First, look for causes, not villains. When something bad happens, resist finding someone to blame. Except bad things can happen without specific intent. Focus energy on understanding the system, the interacting causes.
And the flip side.
Look for systems, not heroes. When something good happens, resist giving all credit to one heroic individual. Ask, would this have happened anyway? Did the system enable this success? Give the system credit, too. Big successes, like global health improvements, are rarely about one hero. They're about systems, institutions, many people working together over time. Focusing on systems helps create repeatable success, not just waiting for the next lone hero.
Okay. Focus on systems, not individuals, whether blaming or praising. Look for the complex causes. How does the blame game play out in my own life or in the news? Another good question. All right, the final instinct.
The last one is the urgency instinct. This is that now or never feeling. The pressure to act immediately, which leads to rushed decisions and drastic actions without proper analysis.
The panic button instinct.
Pretty much. And it's dangerous because it amplifies all the other instincts: fear, blame, single perspective. It shuts down analytical thinking, makes us decide too fast, and tempts us into drastic actions that often backfire. Hans tells this deeply regrettable story from the Kala again. A mysterious, paralyzing disease appears. Unsure if it's contagious, his fear and the sense of urgency make him advise the mayor to shut down a road. The mayor does it. The tragic result: fishermen and mothers, desperate to get to market, try crossing a river by boat instead and drown. The disease, later found to be cassava poisoning from improper preparation, not contagious at all. His panicked, urgent decision had devastating unintended consequences.
Oh, wow. That's haunting. Urgent action isn't always right action.
Not at all. We saw urgency during Ebola, too. The initial suspected cases numbers were inflated by fear, hiding the true lower number of confirmed cases. Panicked reactions like roadblocks destroyed community trust, which was essential for contact tracing. As Hans noted, losing trust because someone feels forced or misinformed could cost 1,000 lives. In outbreaks like that, it's patient, calm, meticulous work building trust, demanding accurate data that wins, not brute force driven by panic.
So urgency works for immediate physical threats, like a car swerving at you.
Yes, react instantly then. But for big, complex, often abstract problems, financial collapse, climate change, World War III, this instinct leads us astray. These huge challenges need calm, sustained, long-term collaboration. They need robust data, systemic understanding, not panic, drastic actions based on fear and incomplete information. The world's just too complex for quick fixes driven by urgency.
Okay, controlling urgency.
3 crucial things. 1, take small steps. In complex situations, patient, meticulous, incremental work is usually far better than drastic, sweeping actions. 2, demand data. Don't let fear or rumors drive decisions. Insist on reliable, confirmed data to understand the situation and track progress. And 3, beware of drastic action. Solutions need to be grounded in a fact-based understanding of the problem, not panic or alarmism. Think things through.
Take a deep breath, basically. Slow down, get the facts, take measured steps. Don't hit the panic button unless absolutely necessary.
Wow. Okay, so those are the 10 instincts: gap, straight line, fear, size, generalization, destiny, single perspective, blame, and urgency.
Yeah.
That's a lot that our brains do to distort reality.
It is.
But being aware of them is the first huge step.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener, trying to make sense of the world? We've journeyed through these powerful, dramatic instincts, seen how they mess with our worldview, and we've discovered the practical tools of factfulness to fight back. Understanding the four income levels, calculating real risks, putting numbers in context, challenging stereotypes, seeing slow change, seeking multiple views, looking for systems, staying calm. These aren't just academic ideas, they're essential, practical tools for navigating this complex, often misunderstood world.
And the core message, I think, is really profound. The world can be both bad and better at the same time. Think of that premature baby in an incubator. Her health is extremely bad, critical. But at the same time, she's improving daily weight, breathing, development. Is her situation improving? Yes. Is it bad? Yes. It's both. Holding both truths is factfulness. It allows hope and action without falling into complacency or despair. It lets you see real problems and real progress.
And it's an ongoing process, right? Rosling said, what you learn gets outdated fast. Need that brain upgrade.
Constantly. Like a software update for your thinking. And it applies everywhere. In education, doctors need global perspective, not just local. In business, future growth is hugely in Asia and Africa. Companies need a truly global view, recognizing talent comes from everywhere. Now, look at the CEOs of Google and Microsoft, both raised and educated in India. Ditch the outdated European branding focus.
And for us as individuals,
Challenge your own assumptions. Be curious. Engage with different ideas. Try to understand the logic. The book stresses the power of curiosity. Realizing you were wrong, if you approach it with humility, can be inspiring. It sparks that childlike sense of wonder Hans talked about, the joy of learning.
that story of the Makongo woman in Congo is such a powerful example of factfulness in action. Amidst fear and anger about this disease, Konzo, she stands up. Villagers blame evil spirits, resist the researchers.
But she calmly, rationally explains the value of research, like the measles vaccine they trusted. She controlled the fear, the generalization, the blame, the urgency, advocated for a fact-based patient approach. She embodied factfulness, and it worked. The villagers lined up to give blood samples. She saw clearly, acted rationally.
That's incredible. So this conscious effort, confront instincts, demand data, see the world as it is, not as we feel it is. That's the key.
It really is. And we really invite you, everyone listening, take these ideas from factfulness. Let them genuinely enhance how you see things. Question assumptions, demand data. Look for the hidden progress and the real challenges still out there.
Absolutely. And if you're eager to really dive deeper, explore the full book with all its stories and insights, we absolutely encourage you to seek it out. Buy a copy. It honestly could change how you see the world. You can also check out gapminder.org for amazing data visualizations and more from the author's ongoing work.
Hans's mission continues through their work.
It does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive at the Playing Books podcast. We truly hope this conversation has given you some powerful tools to see the world more clearly and maybe contribute to a more fact-based understanding of our amazing, complicated, and actually improving world. We invite you to follow, subscribe, and share the Playing Books podcast with anyone else who wants to better understand the world around them. And maybe connect with the authors of Factfulness on social media too. Keep Hans's vital mission going.